Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and tell you whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
That's your Wild West. If you want a better ending, make your own.
In this episode, we'll be playing Wild West Dynasty, the open-world life sim survival game where your goal is to create your own dynasty that lives on after your death. Now, the first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, Wild West Dynasty is currently in early access, quote-unquote early access, and available on PC for $27. Now, I do use the term early access loosely because it is saying it's early access, but it doesn't really feel like it, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. Now, if you guys want to save money on games, you should check out Humble Bundle in the description below. Humble Bundle will not only help to give you a discount on games sometimes, but will also help charity and support this channel. Everything you purchase on Humble Bundle will go towards helping a charity, helping our channel, and giving you some kind of a discount if there's a discount running on that game, which they have tons of discounts that Steam does not all the time. And again, if you want to save money, just check out Humble Bundle down below by clicking the link. But what exactly is the game? Well, Wild West Dynasty is a game that is very heavily inspired by Medieval Dynasty, and that's probably because it's published by the same company. And while yes, the dev companies are separated, the games are very much so near identical to each other, but with a different theme. Now, for those of you who haven't played Medieval Dynasty or Wild West Dynasty yet, let me just go ahead and break it down for you so you know what you're getting yourself into. You'll be leveling up by doing your standard open world surviving things, along with some very basic questing. These levels will then give you skill points in which you can place points into things like reduced food and water consumption, more stamina, and most of your other generic survival mechanics. Your goal is to simply build up a town and convince people to move into it. After doing so, you'll be able to have kids and grow your family, or in other words, your dynasty. Eventually, you will die in the game, and at that point, if you have an heir that is old enough, they will take over and you will then play as that heir or that character. To get to that point, however, takes a very long time, so I wouldn't be expecting to hit that mechanic anytime soon into your playthrough. Wild West Dynasty is very similar to everything we've just mentioned, just with some minor tweaks and changes and a ton of issues, which leads me into our pros and cons section of the video. Now, before we actually get started, I just want to go ahead and warn you that this is not going to be your stereotypical pros and cons style of video that we normally do for these videos. First up for the pros is that the game is inspired by Medieval Dynasty. And to be honest, that's it. That's really the only pro I had for the game, and I'm sure some of you will get upset about this, but if I'm being straight with you, it does not bring anything to the table aside from a theme that Medieval Dynasty doesn't already do. So let's go ahead and talk about the cons, and maybe you'll understand where I'm coming from. Now, for the cons section itself, we will be doing things more informally than we usually do, and just talk about them instead. We will still leave some bullet points on the screen for you so that you can follow along if you want to keep track of what we're actually talking about though. With that being said, let's go ahead and just start talking about them. First up is just the fact that this game is riddled with bugs. And when I say riddled with bugs, I mean left, right, center, up, and down, there's a bug. There are bugs nonstop. And just to give you a small, tiny taste of what I'm talking about here, when you chop down a tree, 90% of the time, that tree's gonna go flying across the map and you'll either never find it or it'll get shot up into the air. Super annoying to deal with. You have items that glitch underneath the ground, so you can't pick them up. Even things like little sticks and stones, which can be very frustrating. Whether it be an item you drop or not, it's something you have to be aware of. Arrows, whenever you shoot them, even if they hit an animal, don't stick to the animal and instead just float midair. You've also got situations where you can get stuck yourself in the terrain and be forced to use the unstuck button, which is a whole problem in and of itself because whenever you use it, it sends you all the way back to where you first spawn in the game, and the map is pretty large. So that can mean you have to walk a very long way, and it's very frustrating because it's very easy to get stuck in a spot where you cannot get out of. I mean, even without the bugs, it's a pain to find just basic materials sometimes, like sticks and rocks. Yes, you can get sticks from trees, but when trees are teleporting across the map half the time, and rocks are not easy to find because they're literally glitched under the ground, it becomes near impossible in certain areas to find the necessary materials to even build something like a stone axe. Can you do it? Yes, but it is a massive pain. Following that is that the game just has a bad story, and you're welcome to disagree if you want on this one, but for me, the story felt lazy. I mean, the explanations and execution of the story overall was not very good. And I'm going to be straight with you. I did not finish it because I was not even remotely interested in it. Just to give you some context, when you first load into the game, it basically says, "The Wild West is tough. It sucks. Make it better for yourself." I mean, it says it more theatrically and whatnot, but realistically, that's really what it starts you out with the story with, and it just feels lazy. I mean, for Pete's sakes, when you're talking to your mom at the very beginning of the story, you're like taller than her and in your 20s, and she's calling you short stack. I get they're trying to make her sound endearing, but it doesn't sound endearing. It just sounds like they were planning for you to be like a teenager or a kid that was smaller than her, but you're just not. You're in your like mid-20s or something, at least visually, when you play the game. As far as quest dialogue goes, a lot of this quest dialogue sounds like it was translated and not done super well. Yes, I could be wrong on this, but if you go through and you just read some of the stuff they're trying to tell you, it doesn't really make a ton of sense. It sounds like, you know, a middle schooler or a high schooler wrote this, not somebody who actually knows how to write dialogue between two characters in a video game or in a book or something like that. It sounds very, very poorly written, and like it just doesn't fully make sense. Following that is just the bad optimization. And yes, I'm talking about things like frame rate. I mean, I have a 2070 Super, I have a pretty decent CPU, I have more than enough RAM, I have everything that I should need to be able to run this game with optimal graphics, and I'm getting tons of just frame drops at random intervals. I'm getting a flat rate around 40 whenever I'm near a town, and 50 at best outside of a town if there's not a lot of models in the game. And, you know, some of these things are excusable. I just want to point that out real quick. Some of these issues I have with the game are semi-excusable for an early access title, but when we start adding these all together, it starts to become a major problem. I mean, it's not even just lag, it's input lag. There are times where you're trying to do something like push W after interacting with a rock on the ground, and it takes you a full second to start moving, where other times it feels like the input lag is non-existent, and when you try to quickly turn or go to a different direction, it feels almost like you're just fastly turning and it wasn't smoothed out. Again, this is all stuff that can be worked on, but at this point, there's a lot of these things. It's not just the stuff on this list I have either, and I still have more to go over. For an example, I have another issue I ran into where items were showing up as having a negative amount of them when I actually had tons of them in my inventory. Items were also worded differently, so it would call it, say, rabbit fur in your inventory or hare fur in your inventory, and then when you went to craft it, it would call it rabbit fur, even though they're the same item. It was just not properly set up ahead of time. Again, these are little things that could have been easily fixed with a little bit more time. I mean, we've got situations where items don't auto-equip to your hotbar. It's really frustrating that that doesn't happen. It should just be, hey, I craft a hammer, it goes right to where my hammer was that already broke. I don't see why that's not a thing. It's a very simple thing to add and a massive quality of life change. I mean, for Pete's sakes, you can't even see your action bar unless you're in your own inventory. It's such a pain because you have 9 to 10 items, you have to remember which slot they're in, and when you can't see your action bar at the bottom, it's not easy to remember. One of my biggest pet peeves was the fact that the same model for a character was used multiple times throughout the story, throughout going through towns. I mean, the one premier example I have is I found a little girl in a red dress dancing in a circle 4 different times in 4 different locations doing the exact same animation. I don't understand why that's a thing, and it is just a massive pain. I mean, even if they were supposed to be twins, why are they all doing the exact same animation in different spots? It just feels lazy and like it was an asset or something that was just bought off of a store or taken from another game and just plugged in and no extra work was put into it. Again, I know this is early access, guys. I get that. I know a lot of you are going to start commenting down below right now, and that's fine if that's what you want to do. Just understand that this is a situation where the game has so many issues, it shouldn't even be charging yet. This should be in like alpha testing right now at best. And at that point, it would be a lot more comfortable with it. And the last thing I want to mention is that I found a bug that basically cheated the entire game for me. Whenever I was going to put talents into my skill tree to try to unlock some different things, it randomly decided, hey, you know what? Just have 99 skill points and go ahead and put those wherever you want. And I unlocked everything available to me with no issues whatsoever. Again, it's just bug after bug after bug after poor optimization after other issues. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about our rating for this game right now. And when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that the game costs. So for this game in particular, in Wild West Dynasty, we would want to get roughly 27 hours of enjoyment out of the $27 cost of the game. And after putting as many hours as I could physically bear with dealing with all these glitches nonstop and lag and other issues, we decided to give it 0 out of 10 potatoes. And some of you will immediately just start saying I'm crazy, how could I give it a 0 down below in the comments and things like that. You know, it's an early access title, and yes, it is an early access title, and there will be issues with early access games. We know that going into it. But I'm sorry, if this was an open test for free, this would be a different discussion. At the end of the day, they are still asking for $27 for an incredibly broken, buggy, and currently poorly made ripoff of a much better game. I mean, you could just go play a medieval dynasty and just pretend you're a cowboy, take away the guns, and it's basically the same game at this point in time. Everything about the game feels like it was rushed or had little care put into it. I'm not necessarily saying that they're bad developers. I'm just saying that the game needed at least another 2 years or so at minimum to be ready for an early access launch or maybe even a beta launch. The fact that they're charging at all for this right now just seems wrong to me. And who knows, maybe in the future they will fix the game. But with all that being said, I genuinely feel that at least for right now, that Wild West Dynasty is not worth the cost at all and should only be purchased purely as a way to support the developers and not for personal enjoyment. Yes, I know some of you will get upset about this. We've already talked about that. And if you feel like you need to comment down below or dislike this video, that's perfectly fine. Right now, with the current state this game is in and what it will most likely be in for at least the next few months, I cannot sit here and recommend this game to any of my viewers in an honest and true way. So either way, thank you guys for watching this video and listening to me rant about this. I hope that you guys managed to save yourself some money, and if you do like the game and you wanted to support the devs, there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So dislike if you dislike, like if you like the video, and subscribe if you want more content like this. Regardless, I want to give a big shout out to our Platinum and Above channel members, which currently include Caustic FPV, Jonathan S., Gerald89, and Jim Phillips. Thank you all once again just for watching. I'm Game Advisor, and I'll see you next time.